You are not tired because life is too hard. You're tired because you're performing, even when you're alone, even when no one is watching. There is a version of you constantly being managed, adjusted, edited, observed, and over time, this quiet performance becomes exhausting. Not physically, but psychologically. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped simply being and started becoming someone who must be seen. The Tao Te Ching described something very precise. When virtue is not lived naturally, it begins to imitate itself. This is what Taoism calls inferior virtue, not false virtue, not evil, but virtue that is forced, self-aware, performed, and in that performance, something essential is lost. Now look around. We live in a world where everything is visible. Your thoughts, your habits, your lifestyle, your values, they are not just lived but displayed. You don't just exercise, you document it. You don't just reflect, you share it. You don't just grow, you announce it. And slowly, the question changes from, is this true for me? To how will this be perceived? This is the moment where authenticity begins to fracture. Because the act is no longer enough. It must be seen, recognized, and validated. And so without realizing it, you begin to split. There is the one who lives and the one who watches. Think about it. You're about to post something, and before you even write it, there is already a filter. You ask, is this clear enough? Good enough? Interesting enough? Safe enough? And if not, you adjust, not because you're fake, but because you have learned what survives, what gets attention, what gets rewarded, and that is not your fault. It is the system that you are now participating in, and the cost is settled. You begin to lose access to unfiltered experience. Moments become content, thoughts become drafts, feelings become captions, and instead of living directly, you start living through a layer of interpretations, through the imagined eyes of the others. Now, extend this further. You don't just have one version of yourself. You have many. On one platform, you are sharp and competent. On another, you are calm and aesthetic. Somewhere else, you're opinionated and certain. Each version slightly different, each one carefully shaped. And at first, this feels like control, like intelligence, like adaptability. But over time, something begins to erode. Because maintaining these versions require constant awareness. You begin to think, which version of me belongs here? What should I say in this space? What should I hide? And eventually, a deeper question fades away. What do I actually think before I adjust it? This is where the boundary dissolves between the mask and the face. You're no longer pretending, you're becoming the performance. And this is where the exhaustion deepens, Because the real self doesn't function like this. The real self is inconsistent. Sometimes confident, sometimes uncertain, sometimes expressive, and sometimes silent. It changes. It contradicts itself. It evolves without explanation. But the digital world does not tolerate this well. It prefers clarity, consistency, identity that can be understood instantly, so you begin to compress yourself. You simplify, you refine, you remove parts that do not fit. Not all at once, but gradually, until what remains is easier to present, but harder to recognize. Now, there are two worlds you live in, the physical and the virtual. In the physical world, you exist directly, you walk, you breathe, you experience things that no one sees. A quiet moment, a passing thought, a feeling with no name. These moments are complete even if they are never shared. But in the virtual world, nothing feels complete until it's seen, until it is acknowledged. And so your attention shifts away from experience toward representation. You're no longer just living, you're translating your life into something that can be perceived, and this creates a subtle disconnection. You begin to feel slightly outside of yourself, as if you're watching your life while living it. And the more this happens, the more distant the naked self becomes. The part of you that is unfiltered, unoptimized, unconcerned with perception, that self feels too raw, too undefined, too vulnerable, because it can't be controlled, it cannot be curated, it cannot be guaranteed to be accepted, so you move away from it. Not deliberately, but gradually, until one day, you feel something too difficult to describe. A kind of emptiness. Not because nothing is there, but because what is there no longer feels fully yours. And this is where Taoism offers something different. Not a solution to perform better, not a method to refine your identity, but a quiet inversion of the entire problem. It suggests this: what if the exhaustion is not coming from who you are, but from who you are trying to be seen as? What if nothing is wrong with your life, but something is misaligned in how you relate to it? In Taoism thought, true virtue does not try, it does not announce itself. It does not ask to be recognized, and it is not concerned with being perceived as good. It simply exists in alignment with what is. Like breathing, like water flowing, effortless, unforced, and most importantly, it does it even if unobserved. This is not about disappearing from the world. It is about releasing the need to constantly define yourself within it. To stop asking, how do I appear? And begin returning to what's actually here, right now. Without interpretation, without audience, without performance, because beneath all these layers, you have not disappeared. You've only been redirected. Your attention has been pulled outward, into perception, into validation and construction. And yet, the way back is not dramatic. It is not a transformation, it's a simple subtraction. A quiet letting go, one layer, then another, until you begin to notice something again. A moment that doesn't need to be shared. A thought that does not need to be refined. A feeling that doesn't need to be explained. And in that moment, there is no performance, no audience, no pressure, just presence, simple, unseen, and complete. So instead of asking, who should I become? try asking something else. Like, where am I still performing without realizing it? And what would happen if I stop? Not forever, just for a moment. Just long enough to remember how I felt to be without being watched. Now, with that thought, take a slow breath in. And gently let it go. Nothing to prove, nothing to display, nothing to optimize. Just this. And for now, this is enough.